listening to the voices behind Women's Cricket Chat. That's Alex, Hannah, Georgie and Cassie. Coming up on today's podcast, we've got Ireland international wicketkeeper Mary Waldron. And we talked to Mary about her career as a wicketkeeper, where she fell in love with the game, and how she got into umpiring and what paths there are for that. We also talked to Mary about Ireland getting test status and what that meant for the country as a whole, and how cricket is on the rise in Ireland. Just a note to say that this episode was recorded before the Ireland and Zimbabwe series.
Yeah, so obviously, Mary, we got in touch with you from Women's Cricket Chat because, as you can tell, we love a bit of women's cricket. And you seem to love a bit of women's cricket too, choosing it instead of football, so that's quite cool. And obviously, you're playing, you're umpiring, you're up to everything really. So today, we joined by the wonderful Mary Waldron. What I would love to know first is what made you choose cricket instead of football?
Well, I played the two of them for a long time together, not a long time, probably maybe 4 or 5 years. And then we qualified for our first T20 World Cup. And so we trained 6 days a week, and I was captain of my football team, and I like to lead by example. So I knew I wouldn't make training as enough so I just was like, I may as well just go 100% into cricket. So that was really it. So a chance to play in a World Cup essentially was my reason.
And as you are Irish and hurling is such a massive sport there, did you ever dabble in a little bit of hurling?
So I played, I'd say when I was maybe 15 or 16, a couple of games. But my sister played, and I played a couple of games actually with both my sisters in the local club, but I didn't really. But yeah, it's female hurling is called camogie. So yeah, so I played a handful of games of camogie, but never really, because I was into soccer from maybe, I think I joined a club when I was 11 or 12, and it was quite serious. So just in terms of training times for club stuff, there was always a clash with soccer training. So that was my first sport. But yeah, I wish I played a bit more.
And so when you decided to take up cricket, who and what was it that inspired you to first start?
So I played soccer in university. I went to UCD here in Dublin, and one of my friends on the team, a girl called Kathy Murphy, she's born in South Africa, but she's Irish, so went to school here and also went to uni. We were friends, and she just loved cricket, wouldn't stop talking about it. And because we were friends, I went socially just to watch a few games and kind of got roped in because I was sporty, just asked to fill in, and I found it quite a challenge. I think cricket's one of those, if you've never played it, you look at it and go, God, that's really easy. Why don't they hit the ball harder? Or why don't they run? There's a single there, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like a bit of an addiction, I think, because it looks easier than it is. And so you're always wanting to try and get better and try and understand the game a bit more. But yeah, that's it. So Kathy Murphy's got a lot to be blamed for.
Yeah, so you say Kathy Murphy has a lot to blame. And obviously, women's cricket in Ireland is very much on the up. And you were just playing in the ICC qualifiers. How was that?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it's one of those I have never had to play in one of those before, because we automatically qualified for the global qualifiers because we qualified for the T20, if that makes sense, for the World Cup itself. So that was my first experience of the qualifiers. So yeah, look, we didn't achieve our goal of winning, which was a bit disappointing, but it's great to play against some new teams and see cricket growing and evolving in that way. And full credit to Scotland for winning. They played brilliantly, and certainly in our game, Catherine Bryce was under a huge amount of pressure, and she did brilliantly, as she has done in England the last few years. So utmost respect for her and the way she played, and well done to them. But yeah, disappointing from our point of view. But yeah, as I said, great to play against some new teams and see cricket growing across Europe.
And you just mentioned there that although it was disappointing for Ireland not to win as a whole, what was it like to witness Gabby Lewis make history as the first Irish woman to score an international T20 100?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, you kind of come up against a team like Germany and you're like, you don't know what you're going to get really, because you've watched some video footage, but you don't know actually on the day what the bowler is going to come like. You don't have stacks and stacks of footage to watch. So yeah, it was it was great to watch. And Gabby's phenomenal batter. Like, unfortunately, she didn't get the runs probably in the 100 that she would have liked, but we see her week in, week out, like smash the ball around. So yeah, it was just another day. I was fortunate to see Cecilia Joyce and Claire Shillington both score T20 hundreds, but obviously they weren't T20Is at the time. That's only changed in the last few years. So that's my third women 100 to witness in the T20. So yeah, it was definitely up there.
And obviously, with this tournament, momentum is high in Ireland. Where do you see it going in terms of progressing the women's game forward?
Yeah, I think that tournament was it's important, and obviously we can still potentially qualify for that T20. So we need to keep an eye on other results. But for us, and I think the long-term growth of women's cricket here is actually our 50 over World Cup qualifiers towards the end of the year in Zimbabwe. And that's purely based on the fact, obviously, qualifying for a 50 over World Cup would be awesome. But the retaining our 10th ranking and going into the chance to go into the championship and have home and away ODIs for the following 2 years would be, I think that would mark a huge another growth spurt really for Irish cricket, in my opinion anyway. But yeah, I mean, when I first started playing cricket, for Cricket for Ireland, which is about maybe 11 years ago now, I used to have to explain to people what cricket was. You know, they're like, cricket, okay, that's random. But now everybody knows what cricket is, and so it's definitely, you know, just growing amongst the general public as well, which is great.
And you say you started 11 years ago. Not your favourite memory, perhaps, at the beginning, getting out for 2 ducks in a row, but one of those only ways up from here. How do you sort of fight back from a moment like that when you start out and you're like, oh God, okay, this has not started well. What's next for me?
Yeah, well, my 2 ducks in a row were playing club cricket for Pembroke. And I literally had no idea and had zero expectations about cricket. I was just like, yeah, I'll walk out here and do whatever. So in that respect, it didn't really hold me back because I was only beginning. My international, I also started with a duck as well against New Zealand, which was fab. And then I had a 0 off 29 balls, not out against England in my second game. So it could really only go up from there. But I was selected as a wicket keeper. And I learned to bat during international cricket, really. So it wasn't, I wanted to do well, but the expectations of scoring runs and that weren't there, nor were they from the team or the coaching staff for my first few years. So it was really just about keeping wicket really well and learning about cricket, if that makes sense. I know it's kind of weird when you should know more about cricket being an international, but that's kind of where I learned a lot of my cricket. So it was a little bit backwards. But yeah, I didn't have a lot of pressure put on me, which I think helped. But I'd also played another international sport, so I wasn't. It wasn't sort of in a daunting arena, I think, for me going in at that. And also, I was, my mid 20s, a little bit more life experience under the belt helps as well, I think.
Also, you shouldn't be too worried about getting ducks at the international stage. England's wicketkeeper Joss Buttler got a duck in his first T20 match, his first ODI match, and almost in his first Test match. So, and look where he is now.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
Like you say, you can only go up.
And it's cricket as well. It happens too. Ducks do happen. Yeah.
And as we know, during the World Cup qualifiers, we were following. We happened to notice that you were wicket keeping in a face mask. Have you always kept in a face mask? And if not, when did you start keeping with a face mask?
Yes, I have. And I did rebuttal on Twitter to say that you're definitely not Irish fans if you didn't know that I kept in a mask. I have done since, I'd say, when I started keeping, because I remember wearing a helmet. And actually, my very first game, I think even club cricket, I played against a woman who top edged the ball into her own face, and she was cut. So I was like, okay, this is a great introduction for me because I'll always wear a helmet. It was kind of my first experience. I was like, that makes it easy. So with wicket keeping, and bear in mind, I hadn't watched a lot of cricket either in my life. So it's not like, what happens when you play a football match because you see it all the time. Whereas cricket, I didn't really. So when I was keeping and moving into the leg side, I'd just dive, I wouldn't move my feet. I'd just dive like a football keeper. So I used to bang my head all the time with a helmet, and I was like, there has to be something easier here. So I just basically Googled face mask, and I think it's a baseball mask that I got. So I've worn it for, 10 years, at least 10, 12 years.
And
So there's a
on
few
the
things.
topic of wicket keeping, you say you were originally brought in as a keeper. What was it that drew you to being a keeper?
It was literally just my club wicketkeeper was an archaeologist. She actually was also in and around the Irish squad at the time. So she just got called away in a dig during the summer, and so she wasn't available. So it was complete random. And my captain at the time, Kira Metcalf, ex Irish international, she just was like, "You be a keeper," and I was like, "Grant," because I think, to be fair, as you know, I was kind of athletic in the field and I wasn't scared of the ball. So I think that probably, and everybody else probably had a skill set. I was kind of just a fielder, if that makes sense at the time. So yeah, so it was literally just random that I got there.
And you have talked about this previously, and we can't bring this up on the pod without talking to you about it. But you are also an umpire, and I think you are the youngest qualified female umpire as well. I'm not 100% sure on that. I might need to check that. And you also mentioned that you sort of fell into umpiring while working in Malahide. Could you explain to us about that and how umpiring is maybe perhaps helped you when playing for Ireland?
Yeah, I'll try and remember all those segments. So I would say I'm definitely not the youngest qualified umpire, but I will take that, absolutely. And definitely, I know certainly on the ICC development panel, I'm older than Claire Polisak and Eloise Sheridan. So, and I'd say Eden as well from South Africa. So I definitely can claim that one. But I'll say in Ireland I'm the youngest. I'll take that one. So I started my club cricket in Pembroke, and I moved to Malahide to just basically progress my batting, because obviously I was in for my keeping and that was fine, but I couldn't hold the bat at all. So I moved to Malahide, and one of my I ended up being cricket development officer there once, and part of that was managing the boys under 15s team. And basically, as anyone who does any sort of coaching during the summer will know, you've got to pick the team, get the team to the ground, make sure they're all fed, score, and umpire, and pretty much do everything. But I didn't like, coaching was good. I always felt really anxious that everybody was enjoying themselves and having fun and that kind of stuff. And I oddly just really enjoyed the umpiring and made sure that I did a good job and was always paying attention. And like, I would never be on my phone at square leg, like, which is fairly standard practice, I imagine, for some people. So yeah, so I'd been in Tasmania for one season at that stage. So when I went back to Tassie, I asked them to basically train me up properly and sent me out in midweek games with like guys from the state panel. That was brilliant. Like, so Cricket Tas really set me up early doors there. And in terms of helping me during playing, I've definitely developed some routines in my batting that have come from umpiring. And then obviously, if there's any rain delays, I'll get about 1,000 questions from everyone. And one of the most popular questions now, if I ever meet anyone, is, how do you do your four signal and stuff like that? Which is, I mean, it's embarrassing, but it's a conversation starter. But yeah, it's definitely, I get annoyed at umpires for sure. Like, it's, even last night I played a club game and there was like 2 LBs and I was like, they're absolutely stitched and not given. But I was like, that's absolutely me on the weekend. I don't give them until I'm sure. And I know people are like, oh, would you ever just give that LB? So there's umpires don't do anything that I don't do myself. So I have a little bit more empathy, not a huge amount, but a fraction more.
And so you were also only the 8th woman ever to be appointed to ICC's development panel of umpires. How did that feel? Was that a very proud moment in your cricketing career?
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the time, I think there was only 6 of us, I think, and I think it kind of just came from nowhere as well. I guess when you come into something like that and you're kind of just you go through the process and you're learning and stuff like that, and then to be going to do it, it was a bit of a surprise. But yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, and I get lots of. I've umpired in some men's T20 qualifiers here in Europe, and just get exposed to the training. Like, I did a lot of DRS and TV third umpire training with the ICC over the winter and stuff like that as well. So it's just a different exposure to different sides of the game, and you've got huge support there. So that was brilliant.
Yeah, and also, so you've had all that development and you've white ball stuff, and you previously said that you would hope to umpire a test match, but you'd want to play one first. So what are your hopes looking ahead with Ireland to that one? When do you think?
That's a great question, and one I think we probably have to ask a little bit more when that might happen. I just I think I mean, I'd absolutely love to, because if anybody knows my batting style, it's slow and steady. Unfortunately, even though I try and whack it, it's definitely slow and steady. So I think a test match would be awesome, and just that challenge, like it's brilliant. But yes, I have no idea. I'm not very hopeful of the prospect of it, to be honest, in terms of playing, in terms of umpiring a test match. I think it's probably potentially more opportunity, certainly if there's more women's tests being played around the world. But yeah, I'd definitely be, I mean, I'd love to, absolutely. But where we are at the minute and the priorities in terms of scheduling, I'm not for test matches up there for the women, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll definitely keep asking the question.
Social media plays such an important role in cricket, especially women's cricket. Do you get a lot of support from the men on social media, or is it very much you guys are sort of, I don't know what the right word is, but you guys are sort of getting yourselves out there?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I think social media has been absolutely amazing for the growth of women's sport. Like, it's been so important. But like, so yourselves getting stuff out there. I mean, you can literally just open an account and get it out there. You don't have to, be begging editors to put it in newspapers and stuff like that. So I think it's really been a game changer for women's sport in general across the globe. And certainly you can see if there's any issues, even I know the Afghan women, there's an issue this morning, and you can see journalists across the world are retweeting and getting the support out there. So that's been really really big. So hopefully there's been big changes made there. But I do think for in our own terms, in the sport from the men, I'm actually on the board for our Players Association as well. So I interact a lot. We cover both the men and women, and there's men and women on the board, so we interact them, and I know they're fully supportive. Whether that comes across on social media, I'm not too sure. It's not something that sticks out, so I think if they didn't, I think I'd probably notice a bit more. So now I do feel generally supported by the guys, and certainly any meetings we have, our issues are at the top of their list as well. They're very supportive.
And you're on the board, which is always fab to have a member of the women's team on the board. What are they doing to try and boost the women's game in Ireland? And do you feel that you're integral to that as the sort of insider?
Yeah, so I'm on the board for our Players Association, as opposed to the equivalent of the English PCA. So not actually on the Cricket Ireland board itself. But what we would do is collate information from the players, and any queries or concerns the players would have, we'd have access to Cricket Ireland to ask those questions. So I mean, it's been great. Certainly in the women's side, we've had, we've more fixtures, better support. We've obviously got our part-time contacts now, which are growing. We're in touch with Cricket Ireland about their growth strategy for women's cricket and stuff like that. So yeah, I think they're doing plenty. Always more to do. Absolutely, in women's sport, there is always more to do, but it's picking and choosing what's the next most important thing. And certainly I'd be looking to keep pushing to get more equality on the Cricket Ireland board itself, more women involved there, just for that diversity of opinion, obviously. So yeah, but I have to say Cricket Ireland have been very supportive over the last while. But yeah, they would say the same themselves. They would want to do more, but it's actually just putting that into practice is the difference.
And obviously you wear many hats: wicketkeeper, umpire, on the island's version of the PCA. How do you manage to balance everything?
Yeah, it's tricky. I have to say, I just started a new job there as well, so my head's exploding. But I think I like to get my fixtures in my diary, and I know what's coming up, so I can plan accordingly. And I'm a pretty relaxed person, so if I need some time to just go for coffee or go for a walk or do whatever, I'll kind of set my stall out and say, no, I'm doing this. I'm relaxing today if that's needed. But yeah, I'm a manual diary person, so I like to get everything in my diary so I know it's coming.
And obviously the whole world was shook by COVID-19 in 2020. How much of an impact for you as an international player did it have on training, matches, international matches, all that stuff?
Yeah, it was massive. So I was playing club cricket and working out in Australia at the time, and I was it kind of lockdown happened here sort of the start of March in 2020. And then I still had my job in Australia and stuff like that. So I was like kind of just waiting out to see what was going to happen. And then I had my job, and I was like, if I come back to Ireland, I'm not going to have a job. So I just kind of sat tight and see how things went. And then I ended up staying. So from an international perspective, I literally missed 4 games. I missed the Scotland series at the start of this summer, and that was it. So it just goes to show you the impact it had on women's sport in general. There was very few fixtures and lots of things cancelled. So I didn't miss out on too much. And obviously Zoom meetings are fab to stay in touch with the team. I had a lot of 4 a.m. starts to, just do the team building stuff. And I remember one of the girls, Sean, organized a cooking class. So I cooked like a 10-course tapas dinner at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was like, this is wrong. So all went in the fridge then. But it had a massive impact. It was one of those mixed ones. I was stuck away from the team, but I was then able to do, a full set of gym, full set of training, a full season in Australia. So, for my own cricket, it was fine being stuck away, but obviously the impact on our international cricket was pretty big, not having a lot of fixtures during COVID.
And so in the continual recovery from that, what do you think the next most important thing is to get under everyone's belts?
I think it's more cricket. Now, I know like even the top 5 teams want more cricket, but certainly in this day and age of obviously the managed bubble, it's very difficult. So I think somehow figuring out a way to kind of deal with COVID and get through series without, because I can't see how this would be prolonged. Because you see even, a few of the New Zealand girls not traveling for the England series because of bubble fatigue, and that's totally understandable. So we need to find a balance of how we travel, play, quarantine, work with governments, all those kind of things. So I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon, unfortunately. Certainly not with the Southern Hemisphere countries, but we need to keep growing the amount of fixtures, and that's across. It's ourselves, it's Australia, it's England, it's all the teams. So, but yeah, more fixtures really. But how we go about that isn't easy.
And you mentioned that you decided to stay in Australia. What are some of the differences in the setups in Australia in comparison to Ireland?
Well, I will say first and foremost, facilities. That is a massive difference. Because even in a club training session, I'd train on grass wickets, and we don't have any grass wickets for training here really. Like every now and again we'd have a centre wicket practice. So that's massive. Now Cricket Ireland are building grass net, so we will hopefully have access by next summer to train on, but we train on AstroTurf. So it's a massive difference. So yeah, that's one. Also, just the structure. I think the playing numbers in Australia are that much bigger that the structure is probably just a little bit more organized. We play men's cricket on a Saturday where I umpire, and then we play other games on a Sunday. And there's enough grounds. Also, so for here in Ireland, we play our international cricket at club grounds. There's no, Adelaide Oval or number 2 where we can go, or Karen Rolton Oval, and play all the big games there, but we have to rely on clubs. So because it's still a growing sport here in Ireland, facilities I think is probably the biggest difference, and obviously the growth numbers in playing. But I know in cities like Adelaide and Perth, it wouldn't be too far off Dublin in terms of population wise, so it's probably similar. But Melbourne, Sydney, the population and the player group is massive, so I think the standard and depth probably in those leagues are a bit better, and the sunshine.
Jules, do you think it's the exposure that the women's game gets over there, because it is such a big thing and there is quite a chasm between the Australian side and those at the top than others lower down in the women's game? Do you think the exposure and the media presence that they have is what is helping them continue to perform at such a high level?
Yeah, definitely it is. It's kind of it's a different one because it's just not a mainstream sport here in Ireland. So it's growing at that like base level, at the grassroots level for us, and just getting the general population to understand what cricket is, as opposed to like cricket's a mainstream sport. That's what everybody plays on Christmas Day in the backyard or Boxing Day or whatever. But I do think the support they get is unbelievable, but their performances back it up as well. I was in the MCG for the final on the 8th of March. That was so cool. But just that experience of being in a massive crowd going to a women's game. But it was absolutely pumped. I went to the Women's World Cup final in the West Indies the 2 years previous, and it was just like, was just like another day. You wouldn't have known. Well, there was some, that was probably a little unfair. There was some marketing around it, but like you couldn't have, you would have been under a rock if you didn't know that World Cup final was happening. So I do think it's brilliant in the marketing, and certainly the diversity and equal pay and stuff like that Cricket Australia really strive for, and make sure they've got diversity on their boards, all that kind of stuff. They really, really push for equality and high standards for the women. And yeah, look, on this, I'm sure they'd say themselves, they're not there yet, certainly with the domestic structure and pay there. It's not the best can be, but it's certainly going in the right direction. But they back it up with their performances. Absolutely. Cricket Australia also have a little bit of a bigger budget than Cricket Ireland, so I'm not having to go there either. They've got a bit more money to work with from a starting point.
And you mentioned that you were at the final of the T20 World Cup. Do you feel that it was a defining moment in the MCG, sold out, packed crowd? It's something that's not been seen before in women's cricket. So do you think it could have been a defining moment in that it's putting women's cricket on the stage?
Yeah, it certainly felt like it at the time, and just kind of just struggling to walk around the stadium trying to find the entrance. Like they just had to, you wouldn't do it now because of COVID, obviously. You'd be like, get away from me. But it was it was just like any normal cup final day where your team's fans. Obviously I just was supporting the umpires, obviously. But you just wanted a good game of cricket, and it was. And I think like the pressure on Australia, like it was the script was written for them for the last 2 years to go and win that, like, and losing that first game to India was just like, oh my God, so it actually just played out so well. And they naturally made the hype by not playing their best cricket in the lead up to the final. But yeah, it definitely was a defining moment, absolutely. And just the coverage of it and the respect, and you can see the emotion of the players. And it felt like it was, it was broadcast on a par with how a men's final would be. And it's not to say that, we want everything to be the same as men, but you understood the realness for the players, the way it was done. Yeah, it was brilliant.
And do you feel that is a sort of legacy that will be experienced across the globe, really? And like girls in Ireland will have seen that and be like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I think so. And I hope so. And I actually, it's just the access to the coverage, because even at the start of the 100 was when it was on BBC, that's like, we get that as domestic TV here. So that's actually a real big one, that you could just be flicking through the stations and cricket comes up. So it depends on obviously the access and the broadcast, and that's where I think social media is a good one as well, where you couldn't help but see that. But it would depend on who you follow on social media if you weren't necessarily into cricket. But I think having it on free to air TV is big. So I'd hope that random girls saw it in Ireland, that World Cup final, but more likely they would have just flicked over to the 100 more recently. So I think just getting stuff like that on our free to air TV is probably going to make more of an impact. But yeah, that final was unbelievable. It's so good.
And for you yourself as a player, do you have your eye on a spot in one of the 100 teams, or would you rather umpire it?
I definitely would rather play in it, but I do feel like my pathway may be a little bit more towards the umpiring side in the 100. As I say, because people are very kindly asked me, do I have a BB or WBBL contract as well and stuff? And I'm always like, well, if you'd pick Sarah Taylor, or would you pick me as your overseas? I'm probably picking Sarah Taylor. So but yeah, my pathway, I think, into those leagues is via umpiring for sure. Absolutely, I'd bite your hand off to play in them, but it would be realistic at 37, and I'd say my international average would be certainly flicked over very quickly on the batting side.
Age is just a number. We all see what Jimmy Anderson is doing. 37 is nothing.
Yes. Childlike.
You've got time.
Yeah.
Childlike. You never know. We could see you playing and umpiring. Can that be a thing?
I'd like for it to be, but probably not. Probably. I'm not allowed umpire actually in my Irish leagues here, in case I gun someone that I'm up for selection with, which I kind of find interesting. I was like, but I'm obviously not going to do that. But I guess taking the option out for me.
And so obviously you've become very visible as an international player, as an umpire. Who was your role model in the umpiring stratosphere when you were growing up? Because obviously we've got people like Claire Polisak, who was the first female umpire of a men's ODI, but who was it for you?
So growing up, I'm still growing up really. So when I didn't really notice umpires that much. And now Kathy Cross always umpired any international stuff we had. So I guess she was a visible female umpire. So yeah, Kathy was definitely, there and made it a norm, if that makes sense. And then yeah, Claire and Sue started to do I remember we were in Thailand, so it would have been 2015. I think we were in Thailand. We won the qualifiers there. And there was Jackie from West Indies, Claire was there, Sue was there. So it was the first one where there was quite a lot of female umpires. So that was probably where it first kind of was like, oh, there's more than Kathy, and it's kind of a thing. But in terms of, yeah, they're all great. Like I know Claire pretty well, and Sue, like I've umpired loads of Sue now. Like they're all brilliant. Like so, in terms of, I mean, they're all role models for me, if that makes sense. And also, they'd all absolutely have the phone line open if there was anything, and information sharing and support as female umpires. I mean, they're all there. In terms of off the TV, Richard Cattleborough is one that I like watching. I think he's very good. But yeah.
So you haven't got a little umpiring WhatsApp group then?
I try to actually take myself out of them, not gonna lie. There's too many questions. No, but we do have, we've different kind of platforms that we would converse on. And obviously, like I'd send them the girls a text or whatever if I need. And Eloise Sheridan is there as well. On the ICT development panel as well. And I was bridesmaid at her wedding and stuff, so she's got my back and I've got her back. So there's no, I just message her if I need anything.
And for younger girls coming through that want to get into Irish cricket or umpiring or both, like yourself, for young girls trying to get into cricket or umpiring or both in Ireland, what piece of advice would you give to them?
Just do it. I think people, certainly with umpiring, people are really hesitant because of the perception. You're like, you're not like a 60-year-old white man, so I'm definitely not doing it, and that's so uncool. But actually, it's really good fun. So if you get a chance, whether it's in, your sister's under 10s game or your brother's 4s game and the umpire hasn't shown up, just if you get an opportunity, just go and give it a shot. And if you have any interest in cricket, absolutely. I know my association that I play for here, it's Cricket Leinster, so get in touch with Cricket Leinster if you're not sure where to play, or one of us on Twitter or whatever. But absolutely just give it a try. It's really, really good fun. It's a very social sport as well, so even if you're in your later years, come down. I know I started playing in Pembroke and it's a bad place to play cricket, and I said Pembroke is a very social club. And I actually, when I moved to Malahide for 6 years, I'd still like socialize in Pembroke. And obviously I had friends in both clubs, but just go. It's a great social outlet. And if you want to take it serious, you can. And if you want to just go and make friends and try it, you can too. There's lots of different options. And definitely the game, like there's more social settings. And if you want to go and like fully commit to a league, that's there too. So yeah, whatever option works for you, just go for it.
So obviously, as an international player, you've gone to many a country, many a ground. Where's been your favourite place to play? Perhaps maybe not La Manga, because the pitches.
Oh Jesus, no!
The pitches were not great, with only one score over 150.
Yes, definitely not. Absolutely not. I actually only had this discussion the other day, but during the 2016 World Cup in India, played in a stadium in Mohali, and that was just so cool. Like, it's a brilliant wicket, great outfield, and had that kind of old school sort of feel to it. But it was kind of a close sort of environment, and yeah, it was brilliant. Yeah, Mohali.
And where would you want to play in the future if you were like, right, there's a ground I want to play at or umpire at? What would it be?
It's a difficult one. I mean, any of the Australian ones. I've umpired on Adelaide Oval. Never played there, interestingly enough, but I've umpired on it. I think though it's got to be Lords, really, doesn't it? Like in terms of the pinnacle of cricket, or the MCG.
I mean, Lords do fantastic lunches. Fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I was also there for the women's World Cup final in 2017, the one-day final. That was just awesome. Like, because it's a good ground as well. And I was there for the men's first Test match against England as well. So like just the atmosphere that's there, obviously it's historical value, and yeah, Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna say yeah. Or I'd love the MCG as well because that's also awesome. But yeah, I reckon Lord's first MCG too.
And obviously, Ireland have got test status. How important was that for the country when it was achieved?
Yeah, it was absolutely massive. Now, I'm not sure if it feels that way right now where we are. So that it's just we kind of it happened in the middle of a funding cycle basically. So I think it will be better in years to come. But right now, finding our feet in that test status arena, because there's so many new things that you've got to conform to be a test nation. So I think that transition has been a bit difficult, but also at the time it was unbelievable. And just to have that opportunity to play test cricket, and I know Ireland women had actually already played a test match against Pakistan. So there was the first Ireland's men's test, which I was very sure to tell people that there was a difference because we'd already played a test match. But I think, yeah, like it is brilliant, and it was a real turning point and amazing to get. I mean, there's a lot of hard work gone on behind the scenes, but I think we will in the next 5 to 10 years we reap the rewards now. Well, it is a difficult transition period, that's for sure, and the scrutiny that comes with as well. Like, but yeah, I'm definitely happy I'm not an administrator in Cricket Ireland at the minute, that's for sure. Happy to be a player.
And so you say that sort of 5-10 years in the future. What does the immediate future hold for you and the Ireland women's national side?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, with those World Cup qualifiers in, I think it's mid-November to the start of December. So that is basically our holy grail at the minute. We're just back in with a little break after La Manga. And yeah, so we're back in training now, and it's full tilt for Zimbabwe. And that's it. Honestly, the repercussions of qualification and retaining our 10th ranking is huge. So it's a massive effort from the girls now, and I think we're all ready for it. We've been waiting a long time. So yeah, that's pretty much it. No umpiring at the minute. It's winter now, so I can put my feet up, put my hat box away.
It's not winter, firstly. I mean, it might be an island, but
it is. I mean no cricket to umpire.
Okay. And then when will the season kick off again, like the domestic stuff next year?
Our domestic stuff generally starts mid to late April. Men's slightly earlier than women's because there's more fixtures. But yeah, so hopefully, I mean, for the last 7 years I've gone to Australia for the winter. So I would like to do that again after the qualifiers, but we shall wait and see how the borders are looking and how expensive flights are. But that would be, I'd love to go back after qualifiers anyway and get some umpiring done there as well and playing as well, and hopefully in preparation for playing in the championship.
And what does the domestic side look like in Ireland? Like, do you have 4-day cricket? Do you have a league of one-dayers and T20s, or is it just a mixture?
Yeah, we don't play anything longer than 50 over cricket. So for our club stuff, we have a T20s which we play midweek, and then we have a 50 over competition that's played at the weekend. And you can have the option to play men's cricket if you want, if you're not getting your volume. And then we have our Super 2 series, which is, again, it's T20 and 50 over stuff, and that's generally scheduled around what international stuff we have. So yeah, so I mean, I'd love to. I know actually even in Australia they don't play any 2-day stuff anymore for the women's. It's all T20 and 50 over. But I definitely think for time in the middle, you can't beat it, whether it's bowling overs or batting overs. But yeah, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And to be fair, most women that play cricket at club level aren't massive fans of 50 over, where we obviously as internationals we see the benefit and we need to be playing it. But I definitely think there's they might even go for 40 overs over 50. That last 10 overs is generally a killer. But yeah, I think we need to play a longer format, but I don't see that happening either.
And you've obviously been a great servant to the Ireland women's cricket team. Who are, other than Gabby Lewis, who are sort of the players that are coming up and who we should be looking out for, who could potentially play in the 100 like Gabby?
Orla Prendergast is awesome. You might have seen some of her highlights on some of the social media over the summer. But I play club cricket with her. And she's also been a youth international for soccer as well. So I've actually coached her like randomly a few years ago as well in soccer. But she is an unbelievable athlete. So she's all around. She's unbelievable in the field, bats and bowls, absolute beautiful in swingers as well. So she's definitely one that I would earmark for playing the leagues around the world in the future for sure. There's plenty of other young talents coming through, but Orla definitely is up there for sure.
So it seems like the future of women's cricket in Ireland is in good hands, would you say?
I think so, yes. Once we retain all our players, one of our ex-players actually just was played in the Olympics for hockey. So, we always have that, challenge with retaining because there's so many other sports and they're obviously massively high profile and stuff. So, but yeah, absolutely. There's a great crop and we're reaping the rewards of that kind of evolution, and there's more underage cricket happening and more people coming through. So yeah, definitely in good hands.
And eventually when it does come to retire, I know everyone hates the R word, would you consider going into coaching as well, or would you just focus solely on umpiring?
I think I'd probably focus solely on umpiring. I mean, I can coach and I've had good feedback about my coaching. It's not that I've had, been told not to do it. It's more that I just always felt anxious before I coached that everybody was going to have a good time. And I didn't, I was like, if I can do something else that doesn't make me anxious. And strangely enough, umpiring doesn't make me anxious, even though it probably should. But yeah, I mean, I'd go and do a wicket keeping session at a club now tomorrow. That's no problem. That kind of, ad hoc stuff, or if someone asked me to come down and host a training session for them, or if I'm in Australia and my club or my coach is busy, I'll take the session. That kind of stuff doesn't bother me and I can do it on the fly like that. But I definitely don't have any aspirations to get into coaching but you never know, obviously. But yeah, definitely I'm umpiring will be my cricket pathway for sure.
Well, it sounds like you've got quite a lot on your plate then, really, isn't it? Not just Irish stew and soda bread.
No, Jesus, no. Perhaps
not the diet of an athlete. Maybe more of a, one of those standard umpires you mentioned.
A good hearty stew is fabulous.
And a cheeky Guinness, to up the iron levels.
Yeah, definitely not. That's gross.
But, so obviously, thank you so much for coming on to chat to us. It's been really cool to listen to such a different side of the game, like your umpiring, your playing, and then especially in a nation that is up and coming. You guys, you've got some real stars of the future. The investment is coming. We see it, and it's gonna be amazing to see how Ireland's women's side grows over the years. Also, I love that you had a test match before the men.
Yes, it's very important, and I'm definitely one of those people. If somebody says the ladies, I'll just say women over the conversation, like awkwardly, and like that happened an awful lot when it was the first test match. I was like, men's test match. But look, if you don't say it, nobody else will, and most people are open to upping their knowledge on things. So that was good.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, and it's been fab to chat to you. I'm sure Alex agrees. That's been excellent.
Thank you, girls, and thank you for all the
work
you do.
And have a nice afternoon. Oh, we love it. We love women's cricket. Did you know?
I couldn't tell. That's great. There's worse things to enjoy.
Massive thank you to Mary for coming on and being a guest on the podcast. It was really interesting to pick her brain about wicket keeping and the development of cricket in Ireland. And if you want to keep up to date with the Ireland women's cricket team on Twitter, they are at Irish Women's Crick. And if you want to keep up to date with Mary on Twitter and pick her brains about wicket keeping, she is at MaryOLO81. And to all our listeners, if you want to keep up to date with everything we're doing, you can follow us on Twitter at WCricketChat, on Instagram at Women's Cricket Chat. And if you want to give us a like on Facebook, we are Women's Cricket Chat. If you'd like to give our personal Twitters a follow, then it's at Hannity1194, at GeorgieHeath27, at Cassie Coombs98, and I'm at Alex Jane Pereira on Twitter. This has been Women's Cricket Chat. Tune in next time.